All right, so we're on lesson 4.7, part 2. Now we're going to be multiplying decimals. So we're going to be multiplying decimal by decimal. So think about what you already know about multiplying and what you already know about multiplying decimals and write it down and come back to me. Okay, so hopefully you know that if you're multiplying decimal, which are basically they're fractions, right? And what happens when you multiply a fraction by a fraction? Think about that, right? What's going on when you multiply a fraction or a fraction times a fraction? You're taking a part of a part. And remember, as we move from the tens to the hundreds to the thousands, it is getting smaller. So as we move, it decreases, it gets smaller. So let's take a look at our first problem. So 1/10 times 1/10. Is our product going to be smaller or larger than the factors? These are our factors, 1/10 and 1/10 are our factors. The product, remember, is the answer to the multiplication. Is it going to get smaller or larger? What do you think? Think about it and then come back to me. So if you said smaller, you were correct, right? Because 1/10 can also be written in fraction form as 1/10, 1/10, 1/10. How do we multiply fractions? Numerator times numerator, 1 times 1 is 1, denominator times denominator, 10 times 10 is 100, 1/100, which is the same thing as 0.01. So notice the decimal places in the factors and the product, right? So notice the decimal places. I have 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place. How many decimal places in the product? 1, 2. Be thinking about that because there is a key to all of this, okay? Be thinking about that. Okay, let's look at our next problem. 1/10 times 1/4. What does it mean to take 1/10 of another part? So you're taking, remember, a tenth of something else. Think, what is 1/10 of 4/10? So this is another way we can look at it, right? So 1/10 is the same thing as 1/10. 4/10 is the same thing as 4/10. I know how to multiply fractions. 1 times 4 is 4. 10 times 10 is 100. 4 out of 100, which is 4 hundredths, right? So notice the decimal places and the factors in the product. Again, 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place, right? There's 1 place value after the decimal, 1 place value after the decimal. How many place values after the decimal? 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Are you getting the pattern? You noticing something? Okay, let's do another one. 1/10 times 4 hundredths. Think, what's 1/10 of 4 hundredths? How many places did the 4 shift? So how many places do you think it's going to shift? And is it going to shift to the left or the right? Think about that and let's take a look at it. Okay, so let's look at it. So 1/10 can be written as 1/10. 4 hundredths can be written 4/100. 1 times 4 is 4. 10 times 100 is 1,000. 4/1,000 can be written as 4 thousandths. Now, notice the place values. Okay, notice the decimal places and the factors in the product. So let's look. 1 place value, 1, 2. So how many place values do I have altogether? 1, 2, 3. How many place values do I have over here? 1, 2, 3. So you see the pattern? 3 place values, 3 place values. So how many places did the 4 shift? The 4 shifted over 1 place and it shifted to the right, right? Because we multiplied it by 1/10. So there was 1 shift to the right because it's getting smaller. Because anytime I multiply a fraction, remember, when we multiply a fraction times a fraction, it gets smaller because you're taking a part of a part. And in essence, what are decimals? Decimals are fractions, right? It's just another way to write my fraction in decimal form. So just another way. So let's take a look at these. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. So I have 5 hundredths times 5. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to get bigger or smaller? If you said smaller, you're right? Because you're multiplying by 5 hundredths. okay? So remember what we did before. So I'm just going to simply multiply 5 times 5. What's 5 times 5? 25. So I'm going to put my 25. And that's it. I could have carried it, but you're going to see it's the same thing. So let me rewrite it over here and do it both ways. Okay, I rewrote it. 5 times 5 is 25. Put my 5 down. Carry my 2. 5 times 0 is 0. Plus the 2 is 25. See, it's the same. And you could do 5 times 0. It doesn't matter. It's still 0, right? So 0 over here, it'd also be 0. Now remember, we said how many place values are in the factors. That's how many place values you need in your product. I have 1, 2 place values. I'm going to start at the edge. I'm going to do 1, 2 place values. That's 25 hundredths. Same thing. 1, 2 place values. 1, 2. Same answer, right? 25 hundredths. So 5 times 5 hundredths is 25 hundredths. Okay, so let's look at the next one. 9 times 3 is, what's 9 times 3? 27, right? So I'm going to put my 27 right there. Now I'm going to count my place values. How many place values do I have? 1, 2 place values. So I put my decimal, add 2 place values. 1, 2. And add my 0 there. 27 hundredths. Okay, so if you can multiply regular multiplication, you can multiply decimals. Very, very easy. So what do we do when we multiply decimals? You line up the numbers on the right. Do not align the decimals. That's only for addition and subtraction, okay? So not in multiplication. In multiplication, you do not line up the decimals. Just line up the numbers to the right. Ignore the decimals and just multiply like you normally would multiply. Count the decimal places. Start on the right, so add your decimal place at the end of the number and move that many places, move your decimal that many places. Because remember that the numbers are shifting. We looked before, I believe in the previous lesson, I showed you how the numbers are shifting. So the shortcut is we're moving the decimal. But the decimal is not what's moving. The numbers are moving. We're just using the shortcut of moving the decimal over to shift the numbers. But remember, the numbers are the ones that are shifting, not the decimal. We're just using the shortcut of shifting the decimal, but really what's shifting are the numbers. And we saw that in the last previous lessons when I actually showed you on the place value chart how the numbers move. So the decimal doesn't move, the numbers are moving. Very important that you remember that. All right, go ahead and try some. You can do this, right? Multiply like normal, ignore the decimals, multiply. Then look to see how many place values, how many decimals you have after the place value. After the decimal, see how many places are after the decimal, and then shift over your decimal. That's it. Okay, if you're not sure, stay with me and I'll do this one with you. But if you got it, pause the video and do it by yourself. Okay, so 2 times 4, need my pen, 2 times 4 is what? 8. So you just put an 8. And then you count how many place values do you have after your decimal? I have 1, 2 place values. So then I'm just going to put a decimal and move it 2 place values. 1, 2. My decimal is going to go there. So now I just add a 0. So it's 0.08. It's 8 hundredths. Okay, let's do the next one. 3 times 5, so remember, ignore all the decimals, ignore all the other numbers, just multiply the numbers like normal, and you only have a 3 and a 5, which 3 times 5 is 15, right? You could put your 5 down, carry your 1 if you wanted to, but it's going to be the same because 0 times 3 is 0 plus the 1 is 1, so it's 15. Then I'm going to count how many place values are after the decimal. I have 1, 2, 3 place values after the decimal. I'm going to add my decimal at the end, and I'm going to move it 3. 1, 2, 3. And remember that I'm just using that as a shortcut, but really what's shifting are the numbers. So my answer is going to be 0 15 thousandths. Okay, that's my answer. Pretty easy, right? All right, try some more. Remember, ignore the decimals, multiply like normal, count your decimal places after the decimal, count how many places you have, and then just shift the decimal so you can be shifting the numbers, okay? Then come back to me for the answer. Okay, if you got 21 10,000ths, then you'd be correct. Because 7 times 3 is 21. And then I counted how many places after the decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then 4 times 8 is 32. How many places after the decimal? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 32 thousandths. All right. Pretty easy, right? All right. All right, so write down what you learned today. Proof of learning by solving a problem. So you want to do a multiplication problem that involves 2 decimals, okay? And a reflection or a question you may have. All right, have a good day.